Alright.
What's wrong with that?
Alright. Well, we'll get into it in a second. We're rolling, Nico. I'll take it, yeah? Alright. Hello, everybody. My name's James. Welcome to Planet FPL. What does he say?
Do you want me to do the switch?
Go on.
Yeah?
Yeah, just go, roll.
Oh, fuck, what does he say?
Hello, everybody. My name's James. Welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything revolves around Fantasy Premier League. And Suj is busy on other shite today. So I've got Clayton Fernandez with me for his main podcast debut. How are you, Clayton?
I'm good. Yeah, got the call up. So I'm very excited to be here for the main pod.
Good stuff. I'm going to get straight into your team. How you doing at the moment?
That's so rude. So basically, for context...
because you told me shit and I'm not happy with it.
Why are you... Okay, so for context, I set my bus team just before we started this. You giggled and you've just gone straight into it. So what's your problem?
I mean, no problem. You're doing fine. What are you ranked at the moment?
1.3 mil, which I'm happy with.
That's fine. It's absolutely fine. But basically, we had a conversation just before we started and I was like... We'd spoke last week about maybe covering all 20 teams, and I didn't feel that was necessary because of the Luton-Burnley double game week. And I was like, that kills off loads of teams in terms of interest in the short term, until Clayton said, I'm going to go and buy Morgan Gibbs-White.
Yeah, I think I am.
Well, go on, explain.
Well, so I was looking at my team and planning ahead and stuff, and should I say my team for the pod, or is that long-winded? All right, so I've actually got Turner lined up as bus keeper, but I've got Flecken. So Turner, Chilwell, Ruben Diaz, Estupiñán, Havertz, Rashford, Bumo, Fernandez, Saka, Miss Jackson, and Haaland. And I think, so obviously I'm looking at Havertz, he's a problem there.
No shit.
Yeah, less said about that one, the better. I've got João Pedro there that I'm thinking, so basically why I think I'm going Gibbs-White is it then enables me to turn Estupiñán into Trippier because I want a bit of Newcastle defence, and I personally think the Trippier minutes concern is being overblown a tad, personally. So I'm confident to go there. So I need to raise funds. So I think if I drop Havertz to Gibbs-White, I'll get Gibbs-White for Burnley at home, then stick him on the bench when he's got City. João Pedro gets the call up for his potential 45-minute hat-trick.
Against Bournemouth.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then I forgot what the others were, but it rotates quite nicely until I've been off Pedro for Morris, who I shall be captaining in Double Gameweek 7.
So hang on. So they rotate quite nicely until you want to captain Morris. So basically just rotates for 2 weeks for you.
Yes.
Right. And what about after that?
I will get there.
I'll deal with that when I get there.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Okay. That's interesting. So are you just getting Gibbs-White in because it's Burnley next? Essentially.
No, it's more I need to raise funds. Reverse engineering it is I want Trippier. And I've got no money in the bank essentially. So ideally I'd replace Havertz with another, like go up to Son or something, but I'm struggling to find the funds for that. And I like the rest of my team, so I thought let me just downgrade Havertz to a Gibbs-White who's an enabler. He'll be like the 12th man sort of thing, rotating
about
around.
Anthony Elanga.
Yeah,
for a mil cheaper.
Yeah, I don't know.
If you want to go into Forest, which is questionable in itself.
I love secure minutes, and I think Gibbs-White will play 90 every week, and I think he'll return. I think I like his positioning. I think Forest will do quite well in, other than City, the upcoming fixtures, and yeah, it just for my plan, it looks quite nice. I like it. And you're making me want to double down on it now. So.
Double down on it then, mate. It's like me talking about Harry Wilson last week and then going, I want to double down. I want to get him because Suj threatened to chop his knackers off if I bought him. And the announcement on Thursday of obviously this Luton-Burnley double means I've probably got to put that in the bin. We'll do a little bit of Fulham during this podcast.
Did you see that coming, that announcement?
No, to be totally honest, no. There's a couple of reasons why. So, I mean, I'd projected game week 17 actually in pre-season. Purely because of the Premier League's announcement of minimum 5 weeks and looking at first available midweek that wouldn't clash with Champions League if those two teams were both out of the Carabao Cup ahead of the quarter-final stage. Thought, I can see it then. The decision they've obviously made is they don't want the two teams hanging with the game in hand for a long period of time. There might even be a little bit of influence as well that obviously both are on nil points at the moment and going, sugar, let's play each other and let's have an opportunity to get some points on the board. What I suspect probably more likely is they've waited till Luton's first game against West Ham was out of the way, made sure everything went smoothly from that perspective, and gone, right, let's get this in as soon as possible. They've already broken their promise of minimum 5 weeks notice to the two clubs.
Yeah, that's
so
not a shock, is it?
No, not really. It's come within that. So therefore, they have obviously announced it at the first available period, really, that they could have, that was reasonably okay for the Burnley fans, etc., which obviously is the last midweek before the next international break. So, I mean, could they have done it the first midweek afterwards in game week 9, and then at least the two clubs would have had their 5 weeks minimum notice? Yeah, I think they probably could have, but whatever. They've decided to get it done as soon as possible, and now obviously there's a lot of interest in those two clubs, and we'll cover them. You said you intend to captain Morris in game week 7.
I think I will be, yeah. I like the fixtures, and again, I think what we've seen of, well, okay, my personal opinion on what I've seen from Luton so far, not been that impressed, but the fixtures they've had and the fixtures they've got, I think will potentially see a different side to them. And I don't know, I'm one of those. I like probability. I like playing the odds of 2 fixtures. That, what is it? It's Everton and then
It's Everton away and obviously Burnley at home.
So I like that, and it's something that I'm happy to roll the dice on a guy that's playing 90 minutes probably, on pens probably. So yeah, I like the odds of it.
Yeah, he's almost definitely on the pens. We wasn't 100% sure about that in pre-season, and it's worth saying when he took his penalty against Brighton on the opening day, Adebayo wasn't on the pitch, but Dan Ashby did think that yes, it was most likely that Carlton Morris would be on the pens. And what's more interesting for Luton than Burnley is obviously it does fall into a period where the fixtures are okay, and we highlighted this kind of game week 4 to game week 10 run that Luton have, which is quite nice anyway. So I get the appeal, absolutely. So they've obviously got a trip to Fulham this week, then it's Wolves at home, then it's the double, then it's Tottenham away, and then they go to Nottingham Forest. So for someone like Morris as a 5.5 forward, I absolutely get what the appeal is. No question at all.
I think that block of 4 before they play you guys is perfect. I think you really can't ask for more if you're going to take a gamble on a promoted side. I'm all in.
The thing is, for me, though, so I probably fall into the line where Morris is quite suitable because I'm a João Pedro owner.
Yeah.
So most people, you've got João Pedro as well. Most people, João Pedro looking at it's really, really straight swap.
Yeah.
Just get him in. And I can get that. If I get him this week, I probably still don't start him. If I get him next week, even with Wolves at home, it's debatable. I'd probably be leaving out like Maddison in the North London derby instead, which, yeah, I get the appeal of that and stuff, but James Maddison's not a player I think you're ever particularly comfortable on leaving on the bench, for example. And then even in 7, there's a questionable headache where, again, it might be leaving Maddison out at home to Liverpool, for example.
Okay, so you're not so sold on... Well, not sold, but you're not 100% on you're going to go in for the double.
I might completely leave the two of them, which is a very unusual...
That's very unlike you.
Yeah, exactly. You know, spot on. It is... I can't see me investing in anything other than Morris if I do.
Me too, so far.
And I'm not convinced, even if I did, that I would captain over the Norwegian robot in game week 7, because I think
who does he have in that?
He's away to Wolves, and they've got real pace issues at centre back. We've kind of seen that Brighton really exposed that in game week 2. Liverpool might well expose it this coming game week as well. So I mean, that decision doesn't have to be made now. No. In any case, like, you can get there and go, sugar, there's too much fear there. And Morris is going to get a lot of investment. Yeah. That's unquestionable. And I just think it's natural that most will want to go there who have got João Pedro. My take on it is, though, if it's just going to be for game week 7, potentially, that I play him, am I better off just leaving it? Because the effective is going to save me a transfer somewhere. Because the chances are as well, I don't necessarily want to keep him. So it might even save me 2 transfers. And going for an Archer, for example, $1 million cheaper, who I've looked at some planning on FPL team. If I went with Archer, I never start, basically. Never start him. But great bench cover in the sense that we certainly think he'll be first choice for Sheffield United now.
Yeah.
Saves me $1 million and allows me a little bit more in terms of when I want to go and attack the likes of Liverpool and Aston Villa after the double. So it's looking beyond, for me, beyond game week 7, understanding, right, well, if I go Archer instead of Morris, that's the transfer. It's $1 million in the bank. And then I'm not looking at an extra transfer probably to move Morris on afterwards. Yeah. So it's another transfer that I can use elsewhere. I see a lot of teams at the moment, and I feel like getting Morris as well is possibly going to cause a -4 somewhere. Whether that's probably not part of getting him now, but it might be part of getting rid of him afterwards. And then I just think from that perspective, okay, there's an extra fixture. Well, what's the extra fixture? What's my expectation? Probably 2 points. Yeah. Do I sit there really and think, I expect Morris to return in both games? And it might be what I see in the next two makes me think, yeah, sure, I want to dive in there. But I think my initial reaction when the fixture was announced was, I want to do that right now and get it done. But, for example, as a Pedro owner, don't know the injury status of Danny Welbeck, don't know the injury status of Evan Ferguson at the moment either. And am I better off just leaving Pedro for that Bournemouth at home fixture in 6 and just judging where I'm at after then, giving him a bit of headspace and a bit more info, and then deciding whether it's down to Archer to open up further moves or, I want to get Morris in. I feel like at the moment I probably need convincing to captain Morris to want to bother.
Yeah,
I think
that makes sense. And like you said, you can just judge that nearer the time, right?
That's the thought process at the moment. There are, I think particularly with Luton, there are other assets that are worth considering.
I need your help on one.
On.
I own Kabore.
But at the moment, it sits there. So what you're hoping with, and I know there have been a number of people listening who got Issa Kabore, obviously didn't start the last game. And I think he is the best of the 4.0s if he's going to play. Again, there's injury doubts about Dotti and Giles, the two wing-backs who did start against West Ham. Okay. Now, if one of them's out for a couple of weeks, you're good as. Dotti cover either side, so that's perfectly fine. So even if it's Giles out, Dotti will go and play left wing-back and Kabore will come back in at right wing-back. So at the moment, you leave it, right? And you probably would still play it because you think, well, it's 2 games in 3 days. Even if he starts one, whichever one he does start is a decent fixture, for example. Yeah. So I think you'd hold on to it. I'd say buying that now, you need more information, like one of those 2 other players is injured. Otherwise, don't bother. There'll be people who've got Amari Bell. You're probably quite locked from the perspective that he'll probably play twice, and that's absolutely fine. Mads Anderson, who's also 4.0, scored against West Ham, he'll probably come out of the team if Tom Lockyer's fit. So that's a complete avoid. And I just think in any case, with those 4.0s, if you want to go there, which I might, right? Because the other perspective for me is, say, about getting Archer's more money in the bank. Well, so's an Issa Kabore. So, that's very much on radar for me potentially as well. So, but I need a little bit more information. I think for those who are wildcarding at the moment, and there certainly will be a number because it's a first international break and people always wildcard at this point. Goalkeeper's worth considering as well. Kaminsky, I think he's all right at 4.5. And you could have him in for a little bit, say take these next kind of bundle of fixtures and then say, for example, West Ham come into a better run and perhaps pair him with, say, Areola, for example. So you'd probably go Kaminsky the next 3 and then probably be playing Areola regularly after that as an example, the sort of thing you might want to consider. But I've seen people already asking about the likes of Ross Barkley and things like that. And the reality is, if you didn't have the extra fixture, you just wouldn't be considering this sort of thing.
Could you argue, is that the same for the keeper, though?
With Kaminsky?
Yeah.
But there's so much variables and unpredictability with a goalkeeper. I do like having keepers who've got doubles. It's always in the past been a principal idea of mine with a bench boost is make sure you've got 2 keepers who've got a double, even if they're shit. Although I obviously ignored that in game week 1 this year. But Kaminsky, I think's fine for that reason that it's 2 chances for a penalty save or something, and then there's a mass haul, isn't there? So I think Kaminsky, if I was wildcarding now, I'd probably go him. I think I'd go... Probably Kaminsky. I would chance Kabore if I was wildcard, and Morris. I'd go all 3.
Love for Trafford?
No. No, not at all. I recommend people go back and listen to last week's Clash of Correspondents with Mark Southerns and Jack Toner we looked at the Forest-Burnley game, and me and Jack spoke about concerns about Trafford. It's got to feel at the moment a little bit like with Bazzuno last year at Southampton, and Bazzuno stayed in the team for like 6 months. The feeling amongst Burnley fans at the moment is Muric didn't do a lot wrong last year, and it was a little bit of surprise that Trafford came straight in rather than kind of built his way in towards the team. And I don't think that Company will take him out the firing line, but he might. There's enough risk there not to feel like you need to. Plus, as opposed to Luton at the moment, their fixtures before and a little bit afterwards are quite rough. Then they come into a much better run from sort of game week 9, 10 onwards. So again, if I was wildcarding at the moment, something like Jordan Bayer, who I think I'd pick over Al Dakil, they're both 4.0, would be fine. And of course, the other thing is for those wildcarding now and doing that, and you go, wow, because I think you'd arguably go Lyle Foster as well at 5.0. If you've got 5 in there, I think you're really considering game week 7 bench boost, aren't you?
Yeah, and then probably wild card out of it.
Because but from there as well, if you've gone, for example, Kaminsky, Kabore, Bayer, Morris and Foster, you've gone them 5, right? 4 of them are kind of near bottom price. Obviously, Foster's not bottom price, but you could just leave him as your third forward, and then principal idea might even be leave the money in the bank, say leave 3 million in the bank and go straight from, say, Morris to Ollie Watkins in game week 8, for example, when Villa come into a good set of fixtures, or maybe even Darwin Núñez would be a different example. I'd probably try something like that. Then that bench you could almost forget about.
Yeah.
And you get it out of the way. And I think because it's a double, what's worth remembering, and for those who are considering bench boost 7, and I think this will grow in popularity, most of these doublers go in your 11. So it's asking yourself, what's the worst single players? So I mentioned the example, perhaps it's like Maddison at home to Liverpool, for example. Start looking at that, consider generally not the Luton-Burnley players, but generally the 4 weakest players, and ask yourself, is this bench boostable? Yeah. And I think a lot of people will look at that and think, yeah. I don't regret the fact that I used it in 1, because I don't think it's going to be great at the end of the season. So if it does fall into people's laps, like, it's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine. And I wouldn't normally have said that in previous seasons, but I'd also second guess and say, am I pushing myself into a bench boost because of 2 teams that arguably could end up finishing 20th and 19th in the league? And we have to remember that that's a possibility at the moment. I'm pretty confident in Burnley, actually, that I think they'll improve. I've got more confidence in that than the other 2 teams.
Why is that? Because of who they've played so far?
Style of football.
Yeah.
Style of football. Even when
you said there was a period in your game that...
Yeah, they started well against us. The problem was once we broke their lines of press, they were vulnerable, let's say, and a little bit naive, particularly the fact that they were winning the game. Vincent Kompany spoke really honestly afterwards and said, like, look, couldn't compete with Tottenham in the start of the second half. Burnley won't be the only team that faced that this year, and they have had a really tough start in terms of the fixtures, but it has also been 3 home games. But when you look at some of the underlying metrics already in terms of averages per game, like in terms of like progressive passes, ball carries, ball possession, etc., they're punching near the top 10.
Wow.
Despite the fact they've had those 3 fixtures. So Tottenham only had, for example, like 54% possession against them. I think Burnley had the majority of the ball against Villa. Like, they play differently to most other teams that will struggle. And I think that means when they come up against teams that are more of their ability, like I would think, to be honest, Burnley will probably go to Luton and beat them.
Yeah.
And then again, to reflect back on the idea of going, I want to captain Morris, I'm not sure I do, to be honest. Is it unthinkable that Luton lose 1-0 to Everton and 1-0 to Burnley?
Oh, not at all. But
no, exactly.
I'm here for vibes. So
yeah, no, the vibes is good. And if anybody does want to captain Carlton Morris in game week 7, I'm in full support of that. Again, I think the only Burnley one to consider really is Foster at the moment. And that's perfectly reasonable. As I said, I think if I was wildcarding now, I'd go Morris and Foster, I think. But the midfielders, just none of them appeal at the moment. No. They've got a few who need to be added into the squad who they bought kind of just before game week 4. And we don't know what the impact of that is and how they're going to fit within the team. If you wanted one to absolutely punt in the midfield area from the 2 teams, I'd go Koleosho. But he's an 18-year-old boy. He does look really lively and stuff. Whether he's going to stay in that team, honestly, I think so, but I wouldn't be going anywhere near it personally at the moment. So, as usual with doubles, we can get all well excited. And I agree, like, you know, principally I would say, yeah, captain the doubler, vibes, Colton Morris, double game week, Everton and Burnley. Like, if Luton are not going to have a double game week better than that later in the season, for example.
Do you know what? I joke about vibes. I do actually think, on paper, it is a logical decision. Like,
have we forgotten Emmanuel Dennis and Josh King? Because we all remember it, don't we?
I still stand by. I think that was a logical decision to do it, personally.
And that Watford double was similar, arguably even better, because it was Norwich at home and Burnley.
Yeah, I don't know.
The second game.
The way my brain is wired is, like, as long as I can find rationale in the decision, I'm comfortable with whatever the outcome is. And
the fact that he's got 2 fixtures is enough rationale.
But I think the type of fixtures as well, like Everton away, Burnley at home. I take your point on Burnley, but I don't know. You can't really ask for 2 better ones. And
no, and Burnley's other fixture, which is Newcastle away, rules out that you'd want to captain like a
Exactly.
Foster and punt it that way, for example. Like, I just don't see that. So if you were going to use the armband, it is on a Luton player, and I only think it's Morris. I think like he's the only one from the two, I think, that would be worth consideration for the captaincy. I'm sure there'll be one or two out there. We'll go Kaminsky, for
What's
example.
your prediction right now?
It.
Do you think it will grow in popularity?
Yeah, massively.
Morris, or the other way? Okay.
Yeah, it'll grow. It'll grow. All we need is to do anything in the next couple as well. And as said, like, there's enough good fixtures. I had Dan Ashby on before they played Chelsea, and we was like, look, as soon as this Chelsea game finishes, there's a good run of fixtures. And we spoke then on that podcast about people who walked into João Pedro problems and going, oh shit, Carlton Morris is the same price. Mm-hmm. And it's not something I'm going to say to you, I'm definitely not going to make that move either. I absolutely could. But I went looking ahead at plans, it probably looks better for me longer term to look at going Archer, and just my route for things like Mo Salah just becomes a little bit easier.
Yeah.
And isn't that more of a priority? Like, if I said to someone now, and I think this is worth stepping back and thinking about it, do you want to end in game week 7 with the right Luton and Burnley players, or do you want to land at game week 9 with the right Liverpool and Aston Villa players?
And I'd say, why not both?
And if you can work both, that's the perfect scenario.
Yeah. But because that's kind of what I've got in my head as well. Like, the plan I was looking at obviously involved bringing in Gibbs White as an enabler to get in Trippier, and then later on in the plan I've got Watkins kind of lined up. I probably am going similar to you in terms of considering getting rid of Haaland to bring in Salah for that run and kind of take it on. At the minute, that's kind of where I'm at, but obviously things will change and stuff, so I'm not wedding myself to one particular route so far, but that's the rough idea.
Luton's opponents this weekend are Fulham, who me and Studge had, let's say, a heated debate about this time last week, which I think people quite enjoyed.
Genitalia.
Involved genitalia and involved Harry Wilson quite a lot. Studge, you're going to get away with it because this double game week means I cannot justify going down that route of Harry Wilson now. Can't, unfortunately. And he was very much in my thoughts, although looking more at the underlying data, which I think was worthwhile checking in, Bobby Deck or Dover Reed don't half sharp a lot better as well.
Oh,
anyway.
Really? Okay.
But I was influenced by going to that cup game, and Wilson, when he came on, so lively instantly, should have scored towards the end of that game. And I'm more confident about his minutes going forward. Bernd Leno's obviously quite reasonable. He's just gone up to price overnight to 4.6. The next 4 fixtures are really good. It is Luton at home, Crystal Palace away, Chelsea at home, and then Sheffield United at home. So I was even looking at something, Clayton, that involved rotating him, like what you've spoken about here with, say, Gibbs White and João Pedro. Like, I'd rather you went Harry Wilson under this route.
You say that block of 4
Luton
is really
at home
good.
this week rather than Forest at home to
I
Burnley.
see 2 good fixtures. I don't think Palace away is any good, and I don't think Chelsea at home.
I don't know. Wolves scored there twice.
Yeah,
It's worth saying Palace again. Underlying numbers are pretty good defensively at the moment.
I'm not as. I take your point. He could do really well against Luton and probably Sheffield United as well, but I don't love that.
No, and the feedback was most people didn't love it either, and I get that. The other one I'm considering a little bit, although I'm going to struggle hard to find it justifiable, but if something did happen to Raul Jimenez in this week or so, I think that would kill off me buying Morris. I'd go Rodrigo Muniz, 4.4. I think he's ahead of Vinicius in the pecking order.
Why? Yeah. I can't say.
He played against us in that cup game.
Okay.
And I was quite impressed with him. Like, his touch and his link-up play was pretty good. It was the first time I'd ever seen him, and it was one of them. I was at ground level, so he was kind of right in my face for a lot of the first half. And yeah, little bits of his play, I thought, oh, you're quite suitable here. I like you.
Interesting.
So look, one game's not enough necessarily, but from an eye test perspective, I was quite impressed with him. And Vinicius wasn't used in that fixture at all, and hasn't been. And Muniz has been getting the odd minutes. So if it came out this week, Raul Jimenez was injured for 3 or 4 weeks, I'm going Muniz, I think.
Yeah, okay.
And I'd probably start him this week against Luton.
I think you kind of have. Well, you don't have to, but yeah, it would make sense.
So, and he's already gone the 4.4, but that would be difficult to justify over Archer, who really does look like he's going to play every week at the moment. But with Archer, again, I looked at sticking him in, and I don't know where I'd play him.
I think my thing with this idea of going in Fulham is kind of what you said earlier about it just feels like another transfer out, and I'm not sure it's a team that, like, I don't know. Are you really going in for like holes in this?
But if you ended up with that with Muniz, the only way he's changing is if you go Sugar. I need 3 forwards.
Yeah. It was just more to like the Wilson point. I'm not sure. It just feels like I'm not sure I'm going in there and getting double-digit returns.
The other reason why they could appeal is, again, it's those 4 fixtures added to Luton and Burnley, and why those 3 teams I think you cluster is there's a number of people looking at Wildcard in this sort of game week 8 or 9.
Yeah.
So again,
Are you?
I'm going to try not to, I think,
Me
is
too
my
so
take
far.
at the moment. But if I walked into enough problems, I think there's enough justification with the flips of fixtures for Liverpool, sort of game week 9. Villa, you could argue sort of anything between 8 and 10. Tottenham come back around, they play Luton themselves in game week 8 after the Arsenal and Liverpool games, where there's enough, you think, sugar, I want to get some bits. And then there's some other lower ranking teams like Burnley, ironically, and Bournemouth for another one, who come into really good fixtures, and they might therefore be better enablers that allows me to thump in the likes of Salah and Trent on Wildcard, for example.
Yeah.
So I can certainly see the appeal of why some want to go there. I've looked at it and I'm not massively happy about it.
Same.
The reason why I'm not hugely happy about it is I think the problem that people will face coming into that period is the same problem they'll face going into December, which is when it flips again in December and then it's like, oh, sugar, I want City, Tottenham, Chelsea, Newcastle, and get rid of your likes of Liverpool, Villa, for example. It's going to be equally as difficult to kind of flip it back into
and
that.
You're going for better teams
so
then
it's
as well.
one or the other. But to be honest, Liverpool and Villa's runs are so good.
So
if you wildcarded over that period, I think you go 6 from the 2 teams, honestly.
So right now, are you tentatively penciled in kind of that December period, or literally no idea?
Yeah, I more want to do it then when sort of Manchester City come towards the end of their good run, game week 16. I mean, there's a case even Boxing Day, and I know there's a lot of people won't want to do that. It won't bother me. So it might even be that it's that for me going into the Boxing Day fixtures that I might be on Wildcard Christmas Day, and I have been in the past. Like it's no biggie. The only problem with that period, the biggest problem with that period is lack of information.
Yeah,
because everybody trains Christmas Day, so if anyone gets injured Christmas Day, you're not going to know about it.
Yeah,
it's a reality.
Right now, I don't really have an idea of when I'm wildcarding. What I've tried to change this season is, I think I've spent too many seasons kind of proactively trying to get everyone with good runs rather than just focusing on getting rid of the bad. And that I did that last season. It worked for me. Finished like 34k last year, and I'm just trying to do that a bit more. And right now, I feel like I can navigate the doubles, can get rid of my problems just with free transfers, and then I'm sure there'll be a period where my team is just in the toilet, and I'll just kind of use it as and when.
And there's a case of that, dealing with your biggest problems. So I get it, like, serious, as jokes aside, you sitting there with Kai Havertz, I get it, you don't want to look at it anymore.
Yeah, ready to bin him off. It'll be so typical. He'll score against
For
Everton.
those who don't know, Clayton is a gooner.
Oh, yeah, as I'm an Arsenal fan with the Saliba top.
I take it you own William Saliba.
I do, yeah.
Cool.
But I've not really played him much. He's kind of been on my bench most of the time.
Why? What, no faith in your team, sir?
No, just more, I don't feel comfortable benching Estepin.
I mean, that's fair enough.
Yeah, and I think I look at Saliba's ceiling as mostly 6 points. Sure, he'll get the odd goal from a set piece, but I don't think that'll be a frequent thing. So yeah, that's kind of, and even in my plans, he's not really forecasted to be in my 11 that often. But I think again, it's a perfect kind of first sub, and that's what I really like about. I know you laugh about the Gibbs White thing, but I just look at each week. My first sub is going to be one of Gibbs White, Saliba, Pedro, and then Morris. So I like it.
Do you need that much?
I mean, rotationally, right? So it'll be one of them.
And yeah, look, this game, I think, can be played very differently this year in the sense of having kind of a benching headache this way. And I know a lot of people don't want that. But to give yourself a kind of a pool of options where let's say you're choosing between 11 outfield players every week and you're leaving whatever you think is your weakest on the bench. Yeah, it's very viable to go that route this year. Just I'd rather you bought Harry Wilson than Gibbs White. I'm not going to offer to remove my genitalia or anything if you don't do that. Like, good luck to you. You mentioned Arsenal, so I think it's a good segue because I want to talk about the 4 teams who are in the Champions League and the potential for rotation amongst those 4 teams. What makes it a little bit more awkward this year as well is that obviously 3 of those teams weren't in the Champions League last year, and in the case particularly of Newcastle, we haven't really got any. We've got no experience of knowing what Eddie Howe will do with a team that's got European football.
Yeah,
absolutely none, even from obviously his Bournemouth days, etc. And Newcastle were obviously a really hard-working team last year. Are they going to be able to manage that without rotating the team? I think they probably will. But we'll start with your Arsenal. Mm-hmm. Do you see big rotation?
No, not initially.
No.
So
I think for people who got the likes of Martinelli is probably
I think it's
the
fine.
most nervous one.
Yeah, I think
He's not going to keep playing Saturday, Tuesday. Surely not.
I think for the first 3-4 group games, it probably will. And I think the only difference will be kind of earlier subs in game states where if the game is comfortably won in certain games, is okay, let's really flex the squad, 5 subs, kind of utilise that. In terms of starts, I think it will be consistent team. And sure, someone like Martinelli, there may be the odd game where he comes out of the team. I think the way I'd summarise it is I don't think there'll be mass rotation. I think it'll be the core 8-9 players in the team and there'll be 1 or 2 changes here and there. But again, more from a tactical lens rather than, I don't think there'll be fatigue issues or anything like that.
Can you just elaborate on that tactical lens?
Yeah, I think Arteta is going, I think he's got the squad versatility now to be able to kind of adapt his approach based on specific teams. So you saw it in the Community Shield. He went with Kai Havertz up top, and that was obviously a specific tactical instruction.
I saw he played up top for Germany at the weekend.
I didn't actually see the game, but I heard...
And they haven't got a manager now. Read into that what you like.
Bloody hell, yeah. And, but yeah, I think that even you've seen glimpses of it last season. He kind of put Tomiyasu at left back to nullify Salah. And I just think you're going to see more of these specific instructions where last season everyone could reel off 10 of the 11 with Arsenal, and I'd say 11 out of 11 most weeks. Whereas now this season, although I don't think it'll kick in until later, I think there'll be the odd game where there's like a nuanced tactical decision and someone comes out with the team. But the core for the group stages, I think, without sounding arrogant, I'm confident in the group. I think it's one that we spoke about on one of the Patreon pods last week. I'd be really disappointed if we don't win that. And I think Arteta's going to take a kind of mindset of go in, blitz the group, win, get the points on the board, and then look to kind of...
Europa League group, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Yeah.
You played PSV in it last year,
We did, yeah.
And, Seville were obviously the kings of the Europa League, but never bothered about the Champions League. We know they want to finish third in their group.
And then go and win the
Lons,
Europa.
so
yeah.
It actually kind of does feel like it would be a bloody tough Europa League group, but it's not a tough Champions League group.
And, but yeah, to your point, I don't think there'll be rotation at all. I think there'll be 1 or 2 spots.
So Martinelli, you think? I'm just thinking here. So we've got Everton Saturday, you got PSV Wednesday, then Tottenham Sunday.
Yep.
You would think right now Martinelli starts all 3 of those games?
Yeah, unless he drops an absolute stinker in one of them.
Trossard's going to be knocking on the door, isn't he? Surely.
But I've been saying this for like a year, and Trossard has every time come on, done well, got his chance to start, didn't impress.
Okay.
So I think the only reason Martinelli comes out of the team right now is an injury, or if he drops an absolute disaster class in a game.
Saka and Odegaard's pretty safe. Yeah, fine. What about Gabriel?
So, I must caveat before I give my opinion. I've predicted him to start every game this season.
You and me both, yeah.
But what I think I've learned from my mistakes
is I was right eventually.
No, not at all. Just I didn't realise how interlinked it was with Zinchenko's availability. And yeah, so it was the way I've interpreted it now was when Zinchenko was unavailable, he didn't want, and we flipped the dynamics, so Partey was inverting from the right, he didn't want Gabriel to be the furthest defender on the left. And I think it's as simple as that. Now that Partey is obviously out for a while, I'm fairly confident that the back four is going to be White, Saliba, Gabriel and Zinchenko. And
so if you're still on Gabriel, you hold now, do you?
I think so, and...
He's 4.8 now as
honestly,
well.
I mean, I've got Saliba, so that's a sideways move I'm not going to do. But if someone's on Wildcard...
and it probably puts you another 0.3 in the bank, though. if it's the difference between something, like, again, is that... if you flip the 0.3 and it allows you to get, like, Trippier the following week rather than focusing your energy on Colton Morris's double, for example, like, should you consider that sort of thing?
For what it's worth... Although I think he'll stay in the team for like 80, 85, 90% of the games while Partey's out because of that relationship with Zinchenko and the midfield. There will be a game like Sheffield United where I really wouldn't be surprised if Arteta goes for that. Oh, go on.
But I was just going to say, when that particular fixture comes around, Sheffield United, which I want to say is around about game week 10, is it? Yeah. I mean, even the likes of Saka and Odegaard might get a rest there, right?
Yeah, maybe. But again, I don't think Arteta's the kind of guy that will go and rest 4 or 5 key players in one game. I think it will be 1 or 2 spread across different fixtures. But more to illustrate the point, I think what I've seen in terms of Arteta's different approach this season is he's going for more control in higher zones in the higher areas of the pitch. And I think someone like Gabriel, who I think is actually quite a good ball progressor, I think he's happy to sacrifice to kind of go for that total control. So that's a game I could see him going for the kind of, just play with two central defenders and then go for complete domination elsewhere. But Gabriel, I think, is fine for 90% of games right now.
Okay, Gabriel Jesus. There's been a few people asking about him.
Really?
I think he starts weekend?
No.
So you think still Nketiah?
I think one more for Nketiah, and then obviously we've got...
Jesus isn't away with Brazil, is he?
I'm not sure, to be honest.
Can't be, surely.
I don't think so. Honestly, I couldn't tell you.
Their number 9's too good.
Yeah. Yeah. Saw him crying on the weekend.
Oh, sorry,
I'm not saying anything about that before I get abuse.
Get the link.
I've got a lot of opinions on that bloke, but
save them for a Patreon.
Yeah.
Okay, because people, I've genuinely seen people asking about Jesus. You're not even convinced he starts.
I'm not 100% convinced he starts against Everton, but once he gets in the team, that's it. He's staying.
Okay.
I just think he's going to try ease him in again. Nketiah's been doing okay, and then have him as sharp as possible, ready for your lot.
So largely for the core FPL assets, not a major concern here.
No.
Okay.
None for me.
Manchester City, I've got a really good draw. Red Bull Leipzig's challenge, but the other two they've got Young Boys and Red Star Belgrade. I mean, there's literally a 0% chance that Manchester City went out in the group stage. They'll probably wrap that up with 2 games to spare, I should imagine. How concerned would you be about owning the likes of, say, you've got Ruben Diaz, haven't you?
I do, yeah.
Is that a concern going into this period for you?
Yeah, but not enough to move it on. I think I've kind of just accepted there'll be the odd game he doesn't play, and I'm okay with that. I kind of knew that when I was buying.
Having someone like that, Diaz or Vardio and Aki, certainly does add weight as well to having that kind of 12th man, if you will, where you feel stronger about things. I get that. I've just got Haaland at the moment. I think with him as well, we need to start thinking of the belief with him that he plays.
Yeah.
And just get over the worrying about it. And somewhere down the line, maybe he won't. But essentially, every game he's been 100% for Manchester City so far. He's started.
Yeah.
So he's only been left out when there's been concerns about, he didn't train fully in the week. Like, there's been an inkling of concern. Every time there's been no concern, he started. And I think he's so good that we should start considering as someone who's just always going to play. Until, for example, if they won the first 4 games in the Champions League, then his rest is probably coming in the Champions League, for example. Yeah. So I wouldn't look up, for example, game week 7. I wouldn't look now and have concerns that Haaland doesn't play. Either. They've got a fixture at Newcastle in the Carabao Cup in the midweek before, and I'm not sure that Manchester City are going to give any sort of shits about that at all. And I think they'd almost arguably rather be out of it because they've got this problem in the quarter-final stage, which might be the same as what Liverpool had a few years ago.
Oh, really?
Because of the Club World Cup. It's scheduled, the quarter-final was scheduled for the same midweek.
They're going to have to play the kids later on again.
They might have to. So they might just be better off getting themselves out of it. Although the suggestion I've heard from Newcastle fans is they'd probably... Although Newcastle fans are obviously desperate for a trophy, probably looking at it thinking the same. Yeah, rest the whole team against Manchester City. Yeah, because with them, obviously, their Champions League draws the flip, right?
Yeah.
They're going to play their strongest team in every Champions League game.
Oh, of course. And, I just think it's one of those. If you think you're up against City's kids and chance for a trophy, go for it. See what happens later on. And this is why I'm not a manager. That Champions
League, it's different game, right? Yeah. And Newcastle aren't used to it. I already alluded to
think
the
they'll
fact,
go through for it.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, by the way. I wouldn't be surprised if PSG don't get out of that group. I think it's quite open. Yeah, just because PSG are not used to playing to that calibre of opposition, right?
Yeah.
Those 3 teams in the group are arguably all better than anything else in Ligue 1. It's debatable. You could certainly have that debate.
Yeah, you could.
So it's a tough group for them. Whereas at least Dortmund are used to playing the likes of Leipzig and Bayern Munich. Milan are used to playing Juventuses, etc. Napoli's, yada, yada.
I hadn't thought of it like that.
So it could be quite a difficult group for PSG. Yes, I think Newcastle can get out of it. It's led to some to speculate about rotation for players. I think for the likes of Isak, it makes it really difficult to look at. And most of us would ring this period right now to go, this is when I'm going to go and buy Newcastle. Brentford at home, Sheffield United away, Burnley at home. And we'll all have Burnley players in game week 7, and Newcastle probably wipe the floor with them, right? And we'll have no Newcastle. Buying the likes of Isak or Wilson feels particularly awkward.
Yeah.
They're going to share, aren't they, completely?
Yeah, I'm not interested in that.
Do you have any case to think, I know that they're going to share minutes, I still want one?
Not for me, but again, it's just my personal preference I just value secure minutes over anything, to be honest. So, I think
similar goes to the likes of Anthony Gordon at the moment. I think there's a price point where he could be considered, but I just think, is Gordon going to play like Brentford? I think they start with Dortmund, then Sheffield United. Harvey Barnes going to be knocking on the door, and I want some minutes somewhere. Like, it's not like they don't have alternatives now. Trippier, you said you think will play a lot more than others are giving credit.
Yeah, I think he'll start almost every game in that period, and
I think he will in the immediate.
Sorry,
like
that's
the
what
next
I meant.
three Premier League games. I think it'll be alright.
Yeah, but even because I was actually having a look at the rest days in between, they're spaced out. Okay.
Yeah, it's not too bad because like Sheffield United in game week 6, not till the Sunday.
Yeah,
and again, if they ignore the Man City game in the midweek, then it's Burnley Saturday.
Yeah,
it's fine. Yeah.
You're right. You made a good point. Like, we don't know how will approach this, but my assumption would be Trippier is one of the key cogs in that team, and they're not going to look to take their foot off the gas in anything until they medically need to. So I'd take the lens. I think he's going to play his strongest team that's possibly available in every fixture until mathematically they're secure or something from the Champions League group, I mean. And then I think, similar to what I said with Martinelli, I think you'll see Trippier get subbed early more than the probability of him not starting, which for clean sheet point potential, I don't think is the worst thing.
The ones that feel safest are the two centre-backs.
Yeah.
Because their alternatives in that position, as kind of seen when Botman didn't play at Brighton, is shoving Burn inside and Target at left-back or playing big tasty Jamal Lascelles. So neither of them, it's not of the calibre. It's just not of the calibre of understudies. So Botman and Cher, I think, will continuously play. Now, Botman, we don't know if he's going to be available for game week 5. He's on the verge of potentially dropping to 4.4. I'm surprised. I understand why his value held, because he got an assist in game week 1. So people had a good return off him in game week 1 and have left him on the bench. I'm surprised Kieran Trippier's value is held. Really surprised. Because he's still in at about 30% ownership. And it doesn't feel like that's a lot of kind of our engaged community within the Twitter space at the moment, for example. So Botman, there's every chance he might hit 4.4 this week. Looking at the fixtures ahead, Brentford at home, Sheffield United away, Burnley at home, West Ham away, Palace at home, Wolves away, Arsenal at home, Bournemouth away, Chelsea and Manchester United both at home, Everton away, Tottenham away, Fulham, Luton, Nottingham Forest takes you up to game week 20.
So good.
Like, someone like that is ideal. And I'd said a lot in pre-season that was like they'll hemorrhage value, and they haven't really. No. I think Botman is specifically because of that game week 1 return has part held. But that's the Newcastle player I'm most interested in if he's back fit, particularly if he drops to 4-4. Yeah. Just go in and that's ideal as 12th man, basically.
So what was your take on Trippier then? Do you think he will get rotated, or?
I'm just not sure if he's going to be worth the more at the moment. And part of that is because just comparing it with the likes of Estupiñán, Chilwell, Pedro Porro, Destiny Udogie, like these guys who are much cheaper who can also be offensive assets this year as well. But I mean, that kind of run I've just gone through as well is another reason not to write Newcastle off from their performances so far this season. A really interesting stat on Newcastle as well, despite the fact they've played Villa, City, Liverpool and Brighton. They're joint best for big chances conceded this season.
Wow. Who's City?
I forget.
Still, that's nuts.
I think it might have been City. But yeah, so I think it's only 6 big chances conceded in them 4 games.
They're so good. Yeah, that's what I'm definitely in.
And then it's not just the Trippier comparison with the Porros, the Chilwells, etc., all that kind of jazz. It's also, is he worth 2 million more than Botman?
See, and this is where 2 million, that's a lot. Right now, I like...
What can you do with that 2 million? Because it's not, you go, oh yeah, Trippier's worth 2 million, but then you're combining, right? Does it become, Botman and Son versus Trippier and Matoma, for example? That's probably quite an extreme one.
Of Gibbs White versus Son now. if I just go Trippier or Botman.
We couldn't. It wouldn't quite work for you, but
it would if I went Stupin and no, not quite. Yeah, but
you'd be like Gibbs White versus Martinelli, wouldn't you?
Yeah,
similar value.
Yeah, interesting.
But then, if you cut off Morris and go Archer instead, then you can have Son instead of Gibbs White. Start playing around and happy tinkering, everyone. I think Newcastle was really unpredictable. And with Manchester United, the interesting thing with them, to cover them off, is in the Europa last year, like the likes of Bruno Fernandes played way more than we expected.
Yeah.
And we can expect Bruno Fernandes, I think, to play every Champions League game, every Premier League game. And they've also landed themselves in a position where there's some questionable selection headaches in terms of they've got a few injuries. So we know Luke Shaw's out for quite a while. I thought Dalot played quite well against you, although it was absolutely bizarre on Declan Rice's goal where he moved to. They've now got an issue on the right-hand side because due to these allegations ongoing against Anthony, he's not going to rejoin Manchester United in the immediate. We don't know if that's really short-term or if it's something that's going to take a lot longer and be long-term. We don't know, but I think off the back of all the things that obviously happened with the club and Mason Greenwood, that seems like the right suitable decision for the football club at the moment, is rather than surrounding itself with more controversy, it's just say, look, let's break for the time being until the police deal with these allegations. It leaves certainly a hole open on the right-hand side because presumably Jadon Sancho would have taken that. He's fallen out with the manager, so he's presumably unavailable at the moment.
You think that's him out of question then? You don't think that's something where he can come back?
Perfect opportunity really for Jadon Sancho to claim this now, but I don't know if that's going to be the case. And it feels to me right now that it would be more likely that Garnacho came in the team and they put Rashford on the right, which as a Rashford owner is not ideal.
Yeah.
Or they shove Bruno Fernandes out that way if Mason Mount's back fit. That also feels not ideal for Bruno Fernandes owners. Or, name to keep an eye on in coming weeks, I think it's Facundo Pellistri, who would probably be more suitable to play on that side. He's only 4.4 in FPL.
Have you spoken to Gary?
No, fans? No. There's enough United opinion out there to find in any case. He might be more suitable to play on that side. So what I'd say is with United assets, I think that needs constant monitoring. My take as a Rashford owner at the moment is I don't think there'll be huge rotation for him in the Premier League. And their fixtures are great. Yeah. Once you look beyond this Brighton game, the fixtures are really good. That does mean that they might be quite liable to some rotation. But for Fernandes owners, it's just zero worry. I don't think. As if he's fit, he'll play.
Yeah, I own him.
Every game. Yeah. I know there's a few getting a bit concerned about Onana, but it's almost like, where are you going with it at the moment? Is that worth a transfer? Now, you could make a case, maybe hold on a couple more weeks. Say you're sitting there, there'll be a few sitting there with, say, Onana, Turner. Maybe just go Onana to Areola in a couple of weeks after West Ham have played Liverpool and Man City. It doesn't feel a high priority with the United fixtures coming up. Because as soon as you get beyond the Brighton game, it will look like... But I'll say what I've said for weeks. I think Brighton will go there and beat them at the weekend.
So do I. Yeah.
Right. I think the only thing I would say is on those 4 Champions League teams, other than I think with Botman, I'm not sure I'd want to invest in any of them at this moment, no. Because I think there's probably a lesson in this from experiences we've had in other seasons that if we can find players from other teams, the likes of Liverpool who don't play in the Champions League, as equivalents, my team, Chelsea, Villa, Arsenal, Brighton unfortunately probably needs putting in the category with the Champions League teams because of the sheer rotation they do anyway. That arguably we should look at these other teams who don't have this Champions League headache coming up in the next couple of months. So, like in terms of investing in new Arsenal right now, no interest. I mean, I've got 3 anyway, so I can't. But Martinelli's probably expendable, but I'm not desperate to get rid of him. Saliba is also someone I can potentially see myself moving on, even though I don't doubt that he plays, for example. That's more... Can I flip that into something that's more offensive?
Yeah, like our fixtures are a mixed bag. So, obviously Everton away, you guys at home. I don't think that would be easy. Bournemouth away, then City, then Chelsea. Like it's a very mixed bag. But more if for whatever reason someone didn't have a Saka or an.
Do you not have after City? It's Chelsea away, isn't it? And then Sheffield United at home, and then Newcastle away, I think.
That's one.
It's kind of, although the Sheffield United fixture's great, imagine you hold even Saka on for that 4, and he does get the rest against Sheffield United, you're looking at City, Chelsea away, Newcastle. Meanwhile, there's others with other brilliant fixtures over that period. Saka's just a hold for me, to be totally honest.
Just more to the point what you said about Bruno and Haaland. I think Saka's the same in terms of he's just going to play.
Yeah, I agree.
As much as I've said he needs a rest and this, the evidence suggests.
But if he did over that period, Sheffield United game, isn't it?
I've said, as a fan, I've said this, like, honestly, at least 10 fixtures over since he's come into the first team, and it's just not happened. I think and Arteta's been so vocal about if you want to be one of the best players in the world, you have to play these 60 to 70 games and just get on with it. So yeah.
He's very durable. He never gets injured. To be honest, even from an England perspective, touch wood, that's not the case. Although if he wants to miss game week 6, that's perfectly fine with me. I think we should be cautious about the 4 teams that are in the Champions League, but I think the likes of Sakas, Haaland goes without saying.
What about
I think
United?
Is fine.
Haaland. Would you invest there?
Haaland is definitely watchable, I would say.
Yeah, I've got my eye on him.
Yeah. He could definitely come into that category where we want to be looking quite quickly, possibly.
Do you think he goes straight in then?
Yes, I think he'll start at the weekend.
Same.
Yeah. Right, clubs who don't have European football, we mentioned really good swings coming up, Liverpool and Aston Villa. What's on your mind with these 2 clubs, Clayton? Because the fixture swing that they have is absolutely great. So for Liverpool, I mean, it's a good couple now, Wolves, West Ham. Then there's the difficult trips to Tottenham and Brighton. But the other thing to remember about those particular fixtures, Tottenham away and Brighton away, there's still good fixtures, particularly for your offensive players. And then there's an amazing run for Liverpool that goes on, I would say, every fixture between 9 and 15 I would classify as a really positive green fixture, bar the trip to Manchester City.
Yeah.
And for Aston Villa as well, kind of starts from, again, you could argue from now, it's Palace at home, Chelsea away, Brighton at home, so next 3 not particularly brilliant. But then Wolves, West Ham, Luton, Nottingham Forest, Fulham, 5 in a row. Might be the best block of 5 fixtures you see for any team across certainly this first half of the season. Yeah. So those 2 are right on radar. What have you got and what's on your mind for them, thinking beyond the kind of double game week 7?
What I've got right now is none.
so that's what I'm saying. What are you going to do about it?
Well, so my...
Wildcard.
Yeah, I don't know. All I know...
If you get the game week 8 and you've got none, I think you're beginning to think about it.
Yeah, no, my point is I definitely won't, can't say definitely, but I've got transfer plans lined up where... I'm getting Watkins in, I'm getting Salah in, and they're the 2 that definitively I want. And if I'm being honest, I'm not sure I want 6 across. Well, I'm not sure I want 3 from each because I'm not sure where else I'd go that I actually think, yeah, that's bang for my buck. If Darwin's playing regularly, yeah, I'd like a bit of him. Trent, I don't know.
Big nodding on if Darwin's playing regularly. Yeah. I want some of that, yeah.
But Trent, I'm not sure. I'm not doubting he'll go off.
It's the argument, isn't it? About, say, versus your Porros, your Chilwells. It's worth saying Chilwell to Trent is a move I can see if people work it correctly. The flip, it gets really bad for Chelsea at the same point as well. Yeah. I can see people getting there and maybe wanting to force that with Trent.
It's more like, yeah, again, I'm not saying he won't do well. It's just, is it an actual need for me? And it probably will be worth it, but if it's easy enough to get there, sure. But I'm not sure it will be, and I'm very happy with kind of going Salah, going Watkins, and then maybe one more that I can easily get to. And yeah, you're right. If I get there and I need to wildcard, I'll do it. But right now, that's the plan.
I think Alisson at 5.5 and Konate at 5.0, which might even become cheaper in the coming weeks, might get a little bit of attention as and when it comes round, where people just look at it and go, I don't know if I can justify getting up the trend, but maybe you certainly look at things like, and I know Liverpool defensively can be questionable, but you do look at things like Everton at home, Forest at home, Luton away as the first 3 of that really good run. I think it could easily be 3 clean sheets over that period. And maybe having something like Konate, if he's fit and he looks like he's going to get back in the team, which we'd expect, might just be a good little 3 million saving and gives a little coverage of Liverpool defensively. But
Have you got any of the 2 teams?
I've only got Watkins, okay. and Watkins has been part of this, just a consistency of going, right, he's in, he's staying, he's not going anywhere. Yeah. And that's bar injury, he's not. Because I just know, even if Ollie Watkins does nothing in the next couple of weeks, I know when his fixtures come around, people are going to want to buy him.
Oh, 100%, yeah.
Even if he doesn't score over this period. And listen, if I knew now he wasn't going to score over this period, I'd dip him out for Carlton Morris and buy him back, right? But the principal idea for me is just to keep him. I think for Liverpool, Mo Salah is obviously high priority. Darwin Núñez.
What do you think of Darwin then? Do you think he'll
I
nail?
really rate him.
I don't doubt that. I know we've spoken about that before. We both rate him. But do you think he'll nail down a regular spot in that?
I don't know.
Yeah, it's a lot.
I don't know. But I think Liverpool should. I really do. I think Liverpool are a much better football team when he plays. I think even just his in-behind stuff creates space for those behind and stuff. I just think they're a much better team when he plays.
That block feels like the one where if he's playing, I think he'll blow in that. I really do.
Excuse me?
I think he'll return very well.
Do you mean blow hard, Clayton, as in he'll be tired? You know, he's blowing hard.
No, just like he'll pop. He'll have big returns. Yeah.
Okay. That's a different kind of return. I'm very interested in Darwin Núñez 7.4. I'm half tempted to get it now.
What?
Yeah, I'm not going to, but I do. I've been consistent on this. It's like if he's in the team, I want to get him in urgently, and that's how I feel because they're in Europa as well, and we're not too sure how seriously Liverpool are going to treat that. But I think we'll get a very clear indication next Thursday with their first game and stuff. Like, I think the likes of Salah probably will play a little bit in Europa and stuff, but not to the detriment for his Premier League minutes, for example, and also started really well in the Premier League, right?
Yeah.
From the games they've had, to be on 10 points is good. They'll feel they're in contention. I don't think they're going to be taking the piss with anything. Liverpool will think there's a if the Liverpool can do well again and, say, take another 10 points over the next 4, then with that run coming, they're in the title race.
Yeah, 100%.
Because they're then capable of what we've said so many times. They can go 6-7 wins in a row and they can do that.
And you spoke about potentially taking on Haaland, going Salah.
I'm strongly of the persuasion at the moment that I'll probably sell Haaland,
Yeah.
when they play you in Game Week 8.
I'm leaning similar.
Can I just say, for clarity, I do not advise that anybody else does that. Because you know the fire that you're playing with. But yes, for me, to be able to get the best of the other bits that I want, which is from Liverpool, from Villa, hold the likes that I want of Bukayo Saka as just a consistent keep, etc. And also probably want to dip into Tottenham again as well. That yes, I probably can. That spell from Game Week 8 onwards, where I think it's a real consideration to be looking at the captaincy and asking questions. So City go to Arsenal. That's the sort of game we'd like to take it on now. Unfortunately, Liverpool go to Brighton, but that day Tottenham go to Luton in that
your
game
boy
week.
Harry Wilson has Sheffield United. You can captain him then, right?
Harry Wilson's got Sheffield United at home, or Rodrigo Muniz has got Sheffield United at home. But that's one, when it comes round, I think Tottenham going to Luton, if Son's in the form of what he just showed, it's going to be extremely popular. Game Week 9 is a more difficult one, City, because City are at home to Brighton, and Brighton will give up opportunities. But the same day, or same weekend, Salah's got Everton at home, United go to Sheffield United, Tottenham have got Fulham at home. So there's 3 really strong alternatives there. The following week, Salah's got Forest at home, Arsenal have got Sheffield United at home, even down to Watkins has got Luton at home that week. Game Week 11 is the one that would have to be behind the sofa with Bournemouth at home. But in terms of that weekend, Salah goes to Luton. Like, is there something that I can fight that week with? It's not like, oh my God, there's no alternative that week. There is. Then City go to Chelsea. Arsenal got Burnley at home. Liverpool have got Brentford at home. Manchester United have got Luton at home. Tottenham go to Wolves. Then City play Liverpool in 13. That week you've got Manchester United goes to Everton. That's a more difficult week. Like, Tottenham have got Villa at home. Newcastle got Chelsea at home. Yourselves, you go to Brentford, Clayton. Game Week 14, City have got Tottenham at home. Arsenal have got Wolves at home. Salah's got Fulham at home. Game Week 15, they go to Aston Villa. Arsenal have got Luton away. Salah's got Sheffield United away. Like, over that period, there's enough Mo Salah I can take Erling Haaland on.
That's exactly where I landed on it. It's like over that block of 6, there's 4 plum fixtures where ordinarily I'd just happily captain Mo Salah anyway. And also, I don't think there's ever like a tough fixture for City per se, but they're not the kind of plum ones, are they? So that's kind of where I landed.
No, that's tough run of fixtures. I mean, to be honest, the fixtures there, we'd say, I'm always of the persuasion generally to say probably home games we shouldn't take him on if he's at home to any, because his home record particularly is extraordinary. But over that period that we've mentioned, there are trips to the Emirates, Old Trafford, Stamford Bridge and Villa Park, which are certainly 4 games you think, I can really take that on. And the home fixtures are Brighton, Bournemouth, Liverpool, Tottenham. Like, can we take it on?
I think so.
Yeah, and again, I don't advise anybody to sell Erling Haaland over that period. But I think anybody who's thinking, I want to get to Trent over that period, that'll be a way of doing it. Yeah. If you do decide you want to get to Trent, and it will really open up. I think it will be interesting because a lot of people will wildcard over that period if they decide to cut Haaland off. And again, listen, you can keep him. You don't have to captain him every week, and it will limit your damage, right? So how risky are you feeling about it? But it's, for me, I'm looking at it and the intention. And to be honest, when it comes to selling him, it will be hard to just press the button. Even if I know I'm going to do it, I'm like, oh my God, I don't know.
You'd be twitching.
I don't know if I want to press the button and sell him. But
like the old guy in Breaking Bad with the bell.
The current thinking at the moment would be yes. The ideal time would be drop him out in game week 8. And the current thinking is probably drop him to Darwin Núñez that same week. And then the money's ready to go for Mo the following week and stuff. That's the current thinking.
And your mob, where you at?
Just a few more bits on Villa, just briefly. I think if you've got, it's hold at the moment. I think Matty Cash's place will come under threat. Alex Moreno is back in training, and we think that's full training, and he might even go straight in against Crystal Palace. He should absolutely be on people's radar, even though he's 5.0, because he's another one that you put him in that kind of offensive bracket. There'll be attacking returns. Look at them games coming up for Villa. Honestly, I think if he's consistently in the team, he'll be very, very popular very quickly, Alex Moreno, with those games coming up. And if they go back to that real left-sided bias, it's going to really put Matty Cash's place in the team under threat.
Okay.
Now, it might be that Matty Cash stays in the team on the right-hand side of midfield as part of that, where Villa can then shunt it, where it feels like a back 3, back 5, or even at times they go back 6 out of possession. So I just monitor that for Matty Cash owners. And if Cash stays in as right-side midfield, when Moreno's back, then it's probably Cash is going to be the better one to go and get. Yeah. So that needs monitoring. Moussa Diaby at 6.6. Obviously needs evaluating as well, and I think it's going to be really popular. And Watkins, I'm fairly sure, will come into returns. There are concerns at the moment in terms of his involvement in the chances that Villa are having, but I still think when these good fixtures come round, he'll have a run, and I'm not overly concerned about him. On my lot, Porro versus Udogie is well worth the debate at the moment, and my personal preference would be pay the little bit extra for Pedro Porro.
Oh, really?
As long as it doesn't affect your upcoming plans. Did you watch Talking Tactics piece? No, you didn't, Clayton.
Oh, yeah.
Very disappointing.
Sorry, boss.
But yeah, there's one moment I showed in the Burnley game really early in the second half where Maddison tries to have a shot from a really narrow angle, and they're both inside, like within the 12-yard area. Why? As the two furthest forward players, Porro and Udogie.
Why would you advise to pay the extra for Porro?
I think Udogie's strength in terms of his fantasy returns all comes from them underlapping runs, as per the link for the assist for Kulusevski against Bournemouth. It all comes in that same channel, and I think people become a little bit more aware of it. Okay. Porro's got way more versatility in terms of where his returns may come from. One of them is shooting from distance, which Udogie won't do. Porro sees the net within 25 yards. He's technically brilliant. He's got one hell of a shot on him, and he will score from long range at some point. Definitely. The other thing is in terms of the positioning of Tottenham's 2/8s, if you will, Sarr and Maddison. Sarr covers in a right back position quite a lot, whereas Maddison's obviously doesn't do that so much at left back. In more kinds of drops in central areas with Bissoon, which then can allow Udogie to go on higher, allows the left-sided winger to come into the half space centrally and stuff. But it starts in terms of the build-up more, where just naturally you can look at Tottenham at times and Porro's playing as a right-sided 10 in the build-up. That doesn't happen on the left-hand side of Udogie. Sure. So there's just small little intricacies there where I think Porro's worth the extra more. That also comes with the caveat that he's a little bit more at risk. Like Udogie, at the moment, I cannot see how he comes out of that team. Porro has a little bit more risk.
Emerson Royale.
Well, Emerson, for example, playing against yourselves in game week 6 as an example.
Right now, is that what you'd think then?
What?
Emerson comes in again?
No, I don't think Porro stays in at the moment, even against like yourselves, because I think the more the thinking will be against you at the moment will be, okay, yeah, shit, leaving Martinelli is going to be a problem, but I told you our manager's batshit and thinks offensively. He'll be going, right, well, if we put Porro there, what's Martinelli going to do about it? Yeah. And can you drag him in deep and make his life really awkward? Whereas if Emerson goes into midfield positions, it's probably more of a case that Martinelli just hangs out, will leave it, we'll cover it in different ways, for example. So I think Porro will just keep playing, to be honest. But there is more risk with that. Absolutely. Sonny, I don't know. In the sense that everyone, is he going to play through the middle? Like, I don't know is the honest answer. I know it would only be covering stuff that we covered last week in any case. I'd say I'm probably about 80%. He probably plays through the middle. If I owned him, I probably would stick the armband on him this week.
Yeah?
I think so. Maddison less keen, but I'd probably chance it. If he starts on the left, you will instantly regret that decision with Son. Yeah. Instantly. But I think because it went so well that he'll probably stay there through the middle. And yes, the spacing behind won't be there in quite the same way, but also consider things like Son's second goal at Burnley, where even then Maddison makes the run and Son holds back and then is then arriving. All Son needs, bottom line, is shooting range. Yeah. Because from anywhere, left or right foot, he's obviously dangerous enough. And with him as well, I spoke about this a lot last year, his confidence. And obviously right now it's through the roof, right? So, yeah, I would be very tempted if I had Sonny to put the armband on him. I'm probably not going to buy him.
What about for that stretch later on?
Unless I came to the conclusion where I really think, Rashford's going to play on the right for United and I don't want it.
Okay.
Otherwise, I don't think I'm going there. To be honest, I might end up rolling the transfer this week, actually.
Lucky you.
I've got Maddison, so I feel like I've got some coverage of it, and I'm content to captain Haaland at West Ham this week. Like, it's fine, isn't it? But it does, again, if we were putting the West Ham away game into that category, it's almost more one you'd feel more comfortable taking it on than perhaps even say like Tottenham or Liverpool at home, maybe. I get that. So if you've got Sonny particularly, I can understand why people would want to captain this week. Sure. What have you got, Tottenham?
None, and I think it's one of those. I'm just going to kind of keep assessing it. I think the entry point for me
is this week or wait. It's now or game week 8.
Exactly, and just the way my team's set up, I think I'm more inclined to wait until you've played us, Liverpool, and then you've got the block of Luton, Fulham, Palace. That's when I want to go in, and I feel like a few more weeks in.
I mean, it's all good ones. Like I look at going, like say Saliba to Porro, and I think, I'm quite happy to do that. And then this week, that's a little bit better and stuff. But then going into say game week 7, I look at like Saliba at Bournemouth versus Porro at home to Liverpool, and I don't know, just psychologically doesn't look quite so right anymore. Not that Porro can't return in some of these bigger games, by the way, it might well do. And actually, one of his, to be honest, first really good performances for Tottenham was actually at Anfield after that disastrous opening 20 minutes last year. Chelsea assets, what have you got, Clayton?
I've got Miss Jackson.
Is he on the chopping block for you? Is it a hold?
Hold. And I've got
I'm in agreement.
I just think I value underlying statistics, and it's gone wrong for me in the past with people like Werner, where I was just wedded to the guy's stats are good, he'll come good, and he didn't. But I think this guy, it's one of those.
His numbers are really good,
and he's the main man there for the foreseeable. So I'm going to stick with it. Yeah,
I think with Chelsea, it's a consciousness of like when that Liverpool Villa run comes round, Chelsea's gets bad. But I could certainly see, like, for you who doesn't have any Villa or Liverpool at the moment, looking at it and going, let me make sure I leave this space now for Jackson to Nunes or Watkins, whatever I feel when that moment comes round. Yeah. So, I've got Ben Chilwell. I think there's the consciousness that, the run they have as well. Arsenal in 9 at home, Brentford in 10, Tottenham 11, Man City 12, Newcastle 13, Brighton 14, Manchester United 15. That's Chelsea's run. Basically got every top team there bar Liverpool. Sorry to the Villa fan. But, Villa go there in game week 6 as well. So you can even say maybe from game week 6. But there's Fulham and Burnley afterwards. Well, I'm quite happy to carry him through these kind of 3 difficult away games they have. Bournemouth, Fulham and Burnley. But then that's definite chopping block. He's the one I'm looking at the moment. It's probably going to be, for me, probably to Moreno or Cash.
I'll probably be doing something similar.
Yeah, okay. And Brighton, finally. Hold. It's not buy now, is it, surely?
No, I don't
Hold
think
or
so.
bin?
I think you could argue for both, to be honest. It's
I can't help but, like, I've been saying it for weeks, I can't help but think they go there and win at Old Trafford at the weekends. It's like, how bothered am I to get rid of it?
It's just, it just doesn't feel like, okay, I'm going to use the word.
Who's good? If you put Rashford on the right, like, is he going to go and track his Stupinan and stuff? Like, I don't think so.
It just doesn't feel, I'm going to use the word optimal.
Fucking hate that word. Sorry, Nico.
I don't know. It doesn't feel quite right. I think I'm in agreement. The Stupinan can go there and score, of course. Do I think they'll keep a clean sheet? No. They've then got Bournemouth at home. Sure, that's fine. But then there's Villa away, Liverpool, City. We all know how good they are, but that just doesn't... it's not buy. I think you can get away with holding, that's fine, but I'm personally going to be selling.
So what's really interesting with Brighton, and I think there's the ugly three fixtures, particularly Villa away 7, Liverpool at home 8, Manchester City away 9. Now City's the one particularly where you think, again, looking at, say, planning on FPL team, you look at Estupinan and they're away to Man City, and you think, even though there's a chance I'll have no Haaland, right, and no Man City, and still think I don't want to play him in that, like it's awful. But otherwise, like Liverpool at home and stuff, I'm not that bothered. And after that City fixture for Brighton, it's Fulham, Everton, Sheffield United, Nottingham Forest, Chelsea, Brentford, Burnley is what follows. And so then they come back into their own great run. But with them as well, competition for places is mad. And consider their Europa League draw, unlike, say, with Liverpool, who can probably breeze through it with half a team. Brighton's is challenging, and because it's their first time in Europe, they absolutely want to take it seriously. Like, speak to any Brighton fan at the moment.
Yeah, they
are absolutely buzzing for those European games, so they'll treat them seriously.
Yeah,
and that's going to be every week's going to be a headache for pretty much anyone that's not called Lewis Dunk or Purvis Estupinan.
Yeah. Yeah, but
I think Estupinan plays the majority, and Dunk we know will. Even with the goalkeepers, like, who's going to play in goal this weekend? Like, not got a clue.
Yeah, I started the season with Still, and I moved him on to Flecken last week, so that was a bit of a headache.
Did you know that Ramsdale currently, statistically, in the Premier League is the worst?
I know.
In terms of goals prevented on expectation.
Post-shot XG. I've got nothing to argue. I don't rate him.
David Raya in? You don't rate him. That's harsh, isn't it?
Okay, I need to elaborate on that.
And Ramsdale's a Planet FPL listener, and you've just said that.
Hi, Aaron. Love you, mate. Love you as a person. You need to improve as a footballer.
Wow.
I don't not rate him. I just think a lot of Arsenal fans, in my opinion, are wedded to the idea of what he could be rather than the reality of what I think he is right now. And I don't think he's as good as the average Arsenal fan.
The reason that I remembered that stat was because I know that Jason Steele's top of that list unbelievably at the moment. But he's obviously only played the 2 games, hasn't he? So, but Bruggen's played the last 2, like God knows. Yeah. So, look, Mitoma is going to play the majority, but it's going to be rotation there and stuff. So, my thinking at the moment is probably, yes, Estupinan hold through. Mitoma, I probably can move it on after, I think, the Bournemouth game in 6.
Sure.
And João Pedro is choppable, but I'm not desperate to do so. As said near the start,
injuries.
If Welbeck and Ferguson are out for a while, that's great. I'll play him when I want to and bench him when I want to. Yeah. So, yeah, that's it. Is there anything else you particularly want to cover off, Clayton?
No, I think we've covered it all.
I think the only one maybe to cover off that we haven't mentioned maybe Brentford, but I think it's a not buy at the moment with Newcastle away this week. I think there's a lot looking at Flecken as their potential answer to their goalkeeping problems, which I can understand. Longer term is absolutely fine and stuff. If you've got Mbumo and the likes, it's all great. You can still invest in him. I think he's got the highest expected goal involvement this season, I think, Brian Mbumo. That is a little bit slanted by, they've had 2 penalties, so it's a little bit slanted by that. So I don't know what the non-penalty expected goal involvement is, but I know he'd still be one of probably in top 5 minimum or so. So he's performing really great. At Newcastle this week, probably plays up front as well. So they'll most likely play 5-3-2. He'll definitely be one of the 2, I should imagine. I don't think they'd play him at wing back. I'd be very surprised. I'm sure it'll be Hickey, Henry at wing back, and they'll go Collins, me, and Pinnock as the back 3. I would have thought. Yeah. Then Everton at home the following week. He's probably back on the right wing, and obviously they added Neil Maupay, and we were regularly concerned. And listen, Brentford know the player well, right? But Neil Maupay's not going to go in the Brentford team as a regular starter. But we knew they were trying to buy someone as an additional forward. Well, Maupay's essentially been it. So Mbumo's place in the team's pretty safe. I'm interested to see which one of Visser or Sade starts up front at Newcastle this week, because I think that's a flip.
Yeah.
You might go Sade for pure pace.
For pace, yeah.
You might do, yeah. But otherwise, if you've got Brentford, you're pretty happy, and I think it's a revisit for next week. Palace, I've had a lot of shots this season. I don't know if that's influenced by some of the fixtures they've had. But again, they go to Villa this week. I think it's more of a conversation for next week.
It's interesting how the narrative around Villa has changed. Well, not a narrative, but because I'm the same. I look at that thinking, that's a tough fixture now. just in
Villa
terms of-
away.
Yeah, like I know it's always been a place that's hard to go, but like now this team, I'm like, okay, yeah, that's on an FDR.
On Johnston and Turner, like they've obviously got number twos have come in who are going to be really challenging, but until it goes badly, I think they're staying the same.
Yeah.
Although Johnston's one of the lowest on that expected goals prevented as well.
You must say though that the sample size on that is obviously
of course.
yeah, and also
Listen,
I don't think goalkeepers stats
any
are like
data
that
that's
mature.
being used at this stage, kind of over 4 games, of course, absolutely needs that caveat. I think really to kind of be into it, you need to kind of be really sort of in the 6-7 games really to have a proper understanding. But then I also think it's worth highlighting things like Newcastle and the big chances conceded is
100%,
pretty good,
yeah.
and factor in
Give
they've
them the
had
context.
tough.
Yeah.
You'd probably rank them 20th in terms of difficulty, and yet the big chances given up, they're right at the other end of the spectrum there. So
100%.
yeah, I think that sort of thing is worth mentioning. Right, that's it then, I think. There's a championship clash of correspondents tomorrow. It's Southampton versus Leicester on a Friday night, which is going to give Matt Samuel and Saints fans absolutely no sweats because nothing's ever gone wrong in that fixture on a Friday night before. But they are the 2 favourites in the betting for the championship, so they're going to come on, and we're going to have a look at those 2 clubs ahead of their meeting on Friday night. Wednesday, Sky Fantasy. Thursday's clash of correspondents is Newcastle versus Brentford with Simon Bibby and Tom Med. I'll be streaming Friday with Ask James. I don't know what time yet. There will be a deadline stream on Saturday morning. Yes, the first Saturday morning deadline stream of the season. And obviously, if you want to support the show, it's www.patreon.com/planetfpl, which include our Q&A today. Tomorrow, Clayton's joining me for our first UCL fantasy podcast of the season. So you'll be back with me for Tottenham on Wednesday. Thursday, we've got Money in Football, and Friday, we'll have our Game Week 5 preview podcast as well. Talking Tactics for Advanced Tier patrons includes a closer look at Trent Alexander-Arnold and just how he managed to get so much space against Aston Villa in Game Week 4. Anything else, Clates?
All good.
Super. Other than that, be nice to each other, everyone. Play it your way, and cue music, please, man-child.
Bosh.
Well done, Chief.
How was that for time?
1 hour 18.
Was that what you were expecting?